One moment. We are live now with Travis Allen, one of the candidates for the CRP. How are you doing today, Mr. Allen?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Excellent. My name's Kimo Gandil. I'm the co-chair for the California College Republicans, and we're here today to ask you some important questions about getting the support of the youth. So if you'd like to take any chance to have your introduction, you can give it now.
Okay, great. Listen, my name's Travis Allen. I was a former state assemblyman elected out of Huntington Beach from 2012 to 2018. I was known as the most conservative legislator in California. You know, very simply, I'm a common sense guy. I was born and raised right here in California, born in San Diego, raised 5 minutes from the border in a little town called Chula Vista. Lived for about the last 20 years of my life in Huntington Beach. I'm a Southern California surfer. I'm actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for riding the biggest surfboard ever built. We had 67 people on it. And, you know, I love California. I love my state. The problem is that as I've lived here and had a great time here, I opened up my own company in 2001 as a financial advisor. I'm a certified financial planner. I've noticed that not only have my clients left the state, but my family's left the state too. So my parents now live in Oregon. My brother lives in Arizona. My best friend lives in Texas. And my clients all started here in California. They're now in 20 different states around the nation. That's why I originally got elected, because I thought that I could do something better in Sacramento. After 6 years of hitting that no button, making the speeches, fighting the Democrats at every opportunity, I realized that, you know, this simply wasn't getting it done. Somebody else could make the same speech and hit the same button, but it wasn't changing things in California. So I ran to be the California governor. You may have seen the race. We garnered 25,000 individual donors, more than any other statewide Republican, 50,000 volunteers, more than any other statewide Republican, 500,000 social media followers that joined Travis Allen on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which they tell me is more than any other state legislator, Republican or Democrat in the entire nation. And we had a great time with it. You know, I beat Gavin Newsom on the stage at the debates. All the media widely reported it. But unfortunately, I came in fourth in that race. And so after the race, I endorsed the Republican nominee, who was John Cox. I did a series of 8 workshops up and down the state to take my volunteers and tell them to volunteer for his campaign. And I did about 3 or 4 walks around the state for candidates to try to help them get elected, knocking on doors myself. But as we all know, 2018 was a disaster for Republicans. This was the worst year we've had in 40 years for the governor's race. John Cox lost in the worst race we'd seen since 1978. And we lost half of our congressional representation. So there's 53 congressmen in California. We had 14, and today we only have 7. This adds to the state legislature, which we used to have a super minority, which is 2/3 Democrats. It's now so bad it's called a mega minority, which means that there's more than 75% Democrats. And in the legislature, it got so bad that just last week, Brian Mainshine, a so-called, Republican light, if you will, he was one of these guys that believe that you need to look and sound more like the California Democrats to win, actually did exactly that. He just turned into a Democrat last week. So the reason I'm running for chairman is very straightforward. I believe we must engage with every single Californian. I believe in a Republican Party that fights and fights to win. We believe in common sense, which is the rule of law. It's great schools. It's safe communities. It's lower taxes. It's a more efficient, responsive government. It's strong borders. It's a strong American family. These are values that we all hold, but we've been sold out by our party. The California Republican Party for 2 decades now has not registered new voters. There's been, the last time we had a statewide bounty and a voter registration program was well over a decade ago. And we've seen our party registration decline from 37% down to 24% today. We have not done the community organizing that the Democrats have done. We need to put a Republican street captain on every single street, a precinct captain on every precinct. We need a chapter of the college Republicans on every college, but also in every high school, in every church. We need to be in absolutely every single community, because I'll tell you right now, there are 5 million California Republicans, more than any other state. It's about time that we had a voice, and it's about time we had a party that starts fighting for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. So we'll just start with some questions then. Our first question comes from John Rice Cameron. He's our activism coordinator and the chair of Stanford College Republicans. He asks,
Nice.
As CRP chair, do you promise to fight for pro-life policies and oppose any and all attempts by California Democrats to expand abortion across the state, including at the universities?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Look, what New York just did was an atrocity. I got to tell you, I don't even think that there's 20% of the country that believes that what they did was correct. I think the number is probably less than 10%. Nobody agrees with this. And I'll tell you that California Democrats are going to go right, they're going to go directly to it. I'm pro-life. Planned Parenthood hates me. They give me a 0% in 13, 15, and 17 for a very simple reason. I don't support their policies. And, you know, we must protect, we got to protect life. It's as simple as that. And what they're doing in New York, it's barbaric. It's wrong. We got to make sure it doesn't happen here in California.
Our next question comes from Ariana Rowlands. She's the chairwoman of the College Republicans. How do you plan to resolve all of the infighting faced by the Republican Party?
Which kind of infighting you're talking about? I mean, look, in any group, there's always going to be some infighting. But the answer is the Republican Party, I believe in a Republican Party that stands for Republican values, our Republican ideals, and supports our Republican president. Simply put, I am a rock-solid conservative. That said, the party has to be big enough to where we can have conservatives and moderates, people that love the president and people that hate the president. Remember, we have to build a majority to be the majority party once again in California. And so the question, you know, is very simple. How do you get past all of this division and divisiveness within our own party? And the answer, in my mind, is very simple. It's with positive, productive action. The college Republicans have always been known for being the boots on the ground, the people that will show up, knock on doors, and help candidates. I have a larger vision than this, though. My vision is very simple. We must do community organizing across the state of California. When I tell you that I have 50,000 active volunteers, I have more volunteers than anybody else in the state. So I don't come empty-handed. We have people that want to fight for our Republican Party. I'm guessing anybody that's watching this right now is sick and tired of watching Crying Chuck and, you know, Nancy Pelosi on their TV every night. So what we do is we implement a statewide bounty program. This means that your organization will get paid for every new Republican registration that you get on your campus. Your local Central Committee or your local Women's Federation, whatever Republican group you're part of, will get paid for every new Republican that you create. So we start with a statewide bounty, registering new voters across state, which funds every single one of your CR chapters across the state of California. And then we make sure that we have a Republican representative in every single college, every church, every street across the state. This action is very simple. It doesn't say that you're a moderate or a conservative, you love the president or you hate the president. It says this is what you can do to make Republicans win again. And very simply, I like it because it's a very simple measurement. Our success is measured by growing our party. When we start growing our numbers again, we will start winning elections. You'll have a stronger voice on campus. And finally, the 40 million people in California will get some balance and a choice again in California politics.
So kind of going off that prior question, specifically at workings that are happening at the CRP, and this is a question coming from the whole executive board, really, of the California College Republicans. There was a bylaw amendment presented to the CRP that would effectively decharter the California College Republicans as a volunteer organization, in effect disassociating us from the party. What is your stance on this? Do you plan to speak against this? Because it will be on the floor.
Listen, I'd have to take a look at the exact thing, but no, I mean, college Republicans is part of the fabric of the Republican Party in California. We must have a strong, viable organization, college Republican organization across California. And this is something that's got to be expanded. I mean, I think that the concept of dechartering something, to me, it's completely foreign. I'm one of the people that believes we need to have as many groups as possible. And I don't even care what flavor of Republicans they are, you know, whether they're college Republicans or young Republicans, Republican Women's Federated, Tea Party groups. I want, if you're a California Republican or a moderate business group, whatever it is, if you're a California Republican, there should be a group for you. There should be a community for you. This is how we expand organically throughout the state. So no, I don't believe in dechartering organizations. I think we need to be doing the exact opposite. We need to be encouraging every single organization to grow. And that means money. That means resources. That means time and talent and expertise devoted to help that growth. And it doesn't just end with a college campus. It goes into every single community. But a successful Republican Party is everywhere. And you don't have to look very far. Take a look at the California Democrats. They have done the hard work to be successful in California. They have groups like Indivisible and By Any Means Necessary and Antifa. And we all know that half these guys are thugs, and a lot of these guys should be locked up for the crimes they've been committing. But the point is these people are organized. You know, they are able to effectively get their people out, put them where they need to be, and create the massive disturbances that we see across our campuses. The Republican Party needs an answer to this. We need to start empowering our organizations, not disempowering them.
Excellent. This next question is coming from Matt Renaud. He's the Bay Area Vice Chair and President of the Berkeley College Republicans.
Nice.
Given that voter turnout amongst young adults was at a high for the 2018 election, with most of them voting Democrat, how do you plan on getting the GOP to appeal to young adults, especially considering 2020 is around the corner? Do you plan on associating with Donald Trump, or what is your strategy?
Look, the LA Times called me California's Trump. So, I mean, if that's any indication, in May of 2016, I wrote an op-ed after Ted Cruz dropped out. I said it's time for Republicans to unify behind Trump. And I meant every single word. It was a very simple choice. You're either for Donald Trump and our Republican values, or you are for crooked Hillary. And today, look, it's no different. We have a president who's the most popular president since Ronald Reagan, and potentially even, longer than that. He's given us the greatest economy we've seen in 50 years. Record low unemployment, real wage growth. Trade deals have been renegotiated with our partners around the world for our benefit, a strong military, and now he's trying to strengthen our sovereign borders. This is incredible. This is everything that he's in, and he is our Republican president. So you better believe your California Republican Party will be supportive of our Republican president. So, that said, our message is very simple. We need to have people across the state of California who love Trump and hate Trump. It doesn't, I mean, in my mind, if you're a Republican, that means that you agree with us more than you disagree with us. If you take a look at your college campuses, you're going to talk to a lot of people where if you give them 10 issues, they might agree with you on 5 or 6 of them. That's enough. Look, they're a Republican at that point. This is when we need to start registering these voters and expanding our organization. It doesn't bother me to hear somebody criticize the president. I think they're wrong, but it doesn't mean they're less of a Republican. What I want to see is I want to see people that understand that people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Maxine Waters, Dianne Feinstein, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, all of these people are really, they're the ones that are trying to destroy our country. And we need to fight them on every campus. And yes, that means we got to, as a Republican Party, stand up for our Republican president and be very clear about what our values are and expressing those in every medium. And they asked, by the way, also about millennials and how you reach them. I'm huge on social media, and it's for a very simple reason. It's the great equalizer. On social media, this is where you find all the millennials. If you go to any of my rallies or my sold-out events, you'll see people that are young and old and every ethnicity you can imagine, guys and girls. This is what it's all about. The Republican Party is the party that doesn't see a division in color. We're the party that freed the slaves. We're the party that believes in e pluribus unum, out of many one, right? We believe, just like Martin Luther King, you're judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin. It's the Democrats and the leftists that believe in all of the policy of identity politics and all of this divisiveness. That's not our message. So you better believe that the Republican Party, it better be young, it better be vibrant, it better be aggressive, it better be fun. So, and lastly, I'll give you one last thing on that. February 22nd, 24th is the convention. I want every single person that's listening to this to come on down to the convention. We're going to be throwing a rally on Saturday. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a party. It's going to be your party, and it belongs to you. So you guys should all show up, because everybody that's watching this must have ownership. The Republican Party is your party.
Well, that certainly rings with the college Republican statement, best party on campus. So, all right, our next question is a more of an ideological one. It comes from Paniotis Frusiakis. He's the treasurer at the college Republicans at UCI, and he's the executive director of CCR. What is your position on the Second Amendment, and how do we protect gun rights in a state progressively restricting our capabilities to own them?
Yeah, look, very simply, if you can't have a First Amendment without the Second Amendment, I am an unqualified advocate of the Second Amendment. It's very simple. This is what protects every other freedom that we have. And in California, people like Kevin De Leon and Gavin Newsom are going to try everything they can do to stop our right to defend ourselves and defend our loved ones and our property against, essentially enemies foreign and domestic. So there's a number of ways to defeat them. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that we have a mega minority in the California Assembly and also in the California Senate. Clearly, it's not going to be a legislative fix, and we already know Gavin Newsom is going to go hard after all of the guns in California. So what we need to do is we need to support groups like the Firearms Policy Coalition, support groups like the California Rifle and Pistol Association, of course, people like the NRA as well. But we need to get them to sue the state of California. FPC, as I mentioned a moment ago, has something like 40 lawsuits right now pending against Javier Becerra, and as he should. The Republican Party needs to stand behind these lawsuits and say, look, this is the party that believes in our constitutional values and believes in our ability to protect ourselves against not just people that would do us harm, but also tyrannical government. And it might seem like a stretch, but you got to remember, across the world, we've seen atrocities even in the last century. And the first thing they try to do is they call it gun control. It's for your safety. The second thing they do is they take your money, they take your property, they take your rights. It's not going to happen here, and the Republican Party has to stand up for that. And as chairman, you better believe I will. Oh, and by the way, I also have some backup on this. As a state legislator, I'm the only person in the race that's actually ever been a state legislator or actually been in elected office. I introduced a bill that would make California a shall issue CCW state, which essentially means that, if you want to get a concealed carry permit, they should be forced to give it to you because it's not a privilege, it's a right, and it's guaranteed by your Constitution, your Bill of Rights.
Excellent. So this next question is coming from Bryce Adams from Sac State College Republicans. How do you plan to get more CRs involved with the party? And more specifically, will they have more power for delegates?
Yes. I think you guys only have 2 delegates right now. It's a crime. There's like 1,400 delegates. Why do the CRs only have 2? Look, this is the problem. Reagan said personnel is policy, right? If you believe in something, well, then empower these people. You can take a look at my career. I've done, well over 20 successful races up and down the state of California, and I've done a ton of them with the CRs. I mean, almost every single big statewide race, you guys are there, and I've been there for a very simple reason that we believe in the same thing, which is if you don't fight, you can't win. And these contests are worth fighting for because it's our government, it's our state. So the question is, how do you empower CRs? Well, it's very simple. I laid out a very simple 3-point plan. Number 1, we register new voters and organize our state, right? That is a statewide bounty program that pays your local CR chapter for every new Republican registration you get. You want more money in your chapters? Register more Republicans. It's a virtuous cycle. The more Republicans you get, the more money you get, the stronger your organization is. Past that, we need to make sure that everybody that is there in your CR organization is empowered as the Republican representative on your campus. We can do further things. We can identify who the other Republicans are around you that potentially go to your school so you can reach out to them and you can build your networks. But it takes somebody from the top, a chairman that actually actively believes in this, that has a history of standing side by side with you, walking and knocking on doors side by side with you. Look, you take a look, the stereotype of the Republican Party is completely wrong. But the only way that we actually redefine ourselves is by doing it. We need to have an active CR chapter on every single college campus. Community college, university, four-year, whatever it happens to be, there's got to be a local Republican organization. It's got to be supported by the party. And then the CR's got to have representation at the California Republican Party, level. And they also have to have delegates, because if you have representation but no votes, what does it matter? You have 2 votes right now. This needs to dramatically expand. Your entire organization needs to be dramatically expanded. This is what we'll do with the funding that comes through a statewide bounty program. And also, just very clearly, a straight up commitment from me as your potential next chairman of the California Republican Party. We will see a college Republicans the likes that we have not seen since Reagan.
Well, that's getting a lot of positive responses right now. One of our constituents, actually from our executive board, is asking that right now one of your opponents, Jessica Patterson, argues she's the only candidate that will be able to fundraise successfully for the party. How do you respond to these claims?
Yeah, well, it's not backed up by the facts is the problem. Look, Jessica Patterson's a former staffer. She's never held elective office. She's worked for people like Charles Munger for the last decade. She ran an organization called Trailblazers. This is her big claim to fame. She basically did 2 things over the last 10 years. She ran Trailblazers from 2011 to 2018, and she ran the proxy drill at convention. The proxy drill is where the leadership group, the Charles Mungers of the world and the other special interests that essentially have been running the party, collect all the votes of people that aren't going to show up. So they already know what the results of the convention votes are going to be before they're even in convention. They start months ahead of time with 20, 30, 40 people around the state to collect all of these proxies. You think ballot harvesting is bad. Proxy harvesting is even worse, because remember, these proxy cards, they're completely blank. So they're bought and sold. And so this is what leadership has been doing to destroy our Republican Party across state for the last decade. Jessica Patterson was doing it. Now, in the Trailblazers that she ran from 2011 to 2018, they had one mission, which was to elect more Republican state legislators. In that time period, 11 to 18, they lost a net of 13 seats. including Brian Mainshine, the guy that just turned into a Democrat last week. That was one of their star pupils. This was, one of her great friends. There's pictures all over social media with her and him, et cetera, et cetera. This is exactly the problem. The organization Trailblazers has been a total failure, but let's talk about fundraising because that's the question. Jessica Patterson, in her career, has raised $2.4 million with Trailblazers. Of that $2.4 million, she paid herself $1.25 million in salary. And past that, she paid over $1 million to the other consultants, which means that of the $2.4 million that she raised from 2011 to 2018, only $142,000 ever went to candidates. Now, compare me in the race. I raised $3.6 million in my time in office. $3.6 million. 50% more than Jessica Patterson, and 100% of that money has gone into races for candidates and for getting out a Republican message. And no, I didn't receive a dime other than some very, very small reimbursements. So I'll tell you very clearly, there's one person that can fundraise in the race. That's Travis Allen. I have 25,000 individual donors, more than anybody else in the state. Jessica Patterson has about 60 donors. And by the way, every single person that's given to Jessica Patterson has given me money as well. And that was while I was the most conservative legislator in Sacramento. So all you got to do is look at the facts. 3.6 million versus 2.4 million, of which she pocketed $1.25 million herself. So I think that tells the whole story right there.
Yes. So this next question comes from Dylan Martin, our communications director. What role do you foresee in the party taking in social media? And perhaps piggybacking on your prior question, how do you plan to use party accounts to expand the Republican message?
Go to my Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Facebook's where I have the most followers. I think I have 485,000 or something like this. It's all at Join Travis Allen. You can see what I believe real messaging looks like. Quick, hard, to the point, on topic. Now, the one qualification is you will know that I only post everything you read there. It's all me. I write every single one of my own posts. So if I'm not posting, it's because I'm probably busy going up and down the state, speaking to groups and all that. But this is what we need. We need real, live, interactive content with everybody across the state of California. Now, compare that to the CAGOP website. If you go on right now to the CAGOP website, they are still talking about last November's elections. I mean, like they haven't updated it in months. This is a crime. If you look at their social media, it's terrible. What they've been doing, it's not engaging. People aren't responding. It's not working. We have so many active, aggressive conservatives on social media right now. It's awesome. I mean, it's just so much fun. The California Republican Party has to reflect this. As your next chairman of the California Republican Party, you better believe that our social media will be on fire. And I mean, to give you, I'm not just saying this. When I come, I bring the largest social media following of any statewide Republican. Bigger than anybody else. The only two accounts that I think are larger than mine right now in California is Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. And then, then I'm right up there with over 500,000 followers. This needs to be your Republican Party, though, with Republican message, hard-hitting, funny, entertaining, insightful, everything, but delivered to your phone wherever you are, because this is next-generation communication.
Absolutely. So this is our final question. It comes from our chairwoman again. And just as overall, when the executive board is considering endorsements, what do you think differentiates you from your opponents that will help you make CRP the best party in the union?
Look, everything, guys. I'm born and raised here. I'm a Southern California surfer. And very simply, I'm the guy that has the experience. I've been elected before. I've been on statewide, media constantly. I've probably gotten more earned media than any other statewide Republican. I have the largest social media following. I have the largest number of donors. I have the largest number of volunteers. That's in the entire state of Republican. I believe that we must empower every single Californian to be a brand ambassador for our party. I want you, whoever you are watching and listening right now, I want you to be the ambassador of the Republican Party. I want you to be the source of everything among all of your friends for everything that makes sense, common sense. I want you to have a direct conduit to your elected officials. I want you guys in Washington, D.C. for the next inauguration in 2020, and I want to make it a massive party. I'll tell you this right now. There's only one person in the race that brings the fire, the passion, the excitement, and believes that we have to have a majority again. We have to dominate state politics. We have to take the fight to the California Democrats. At the ballot box, we got to fight election fraud in the courts, federal court, all the way to the Supreme Court. We got to fight them in court. We got to fight them on media and social media. This is your Republican Party. It belongs to you. When Travis Allen is your chairman, I got to tell you, every single day will be exciting. And to give you an example, when I take a look right now at social media, we see what the president does and he tweets. I got to tell you, it is constant, pure entertainment. Everybody's engaged. There's so many targets here in California. This is exactly what we need. We need an activated, engaged base. We need people just like you, young, aggressive, energetic, intelligent, to help us in this fight. There's more of us than there are of them. And what I mean by that, more Californians that believe in common sense and things that are good and true and right than there are all of these, far left crazy Democrats, all the Antifa thugs, et cetera. But you need a party that's going to back your play. You need a party that is going to fight for you. You need people like Harmeet Dillon who have been fighting on college campuses to make sure that your rights are not violated. And you need a chairman that's going to go there and sell out crowds. And if you've ever been to any of my things, every single place I go is almost every single one's a sold out crowd. And I want you guys right there for the party. I want you guys there February 22nd and 24th for convention, but I want to be able to come to your campuses. I want to excite your base. I want to be able to show everybody in your campus that this is why I'm a Republican. It's because I believe in tough on crime laws because I want a safe community. I want better schools. I want lower taxes so I can actually get a job. I want more housing in California so I don't got to live with my parents or rent until I'm 35 years old. I want, a better business climate so I can actually work in the state of California and I don't got to go someplace else, right? And I want strong borders because, again, I want that safety and I'm a citizen and we worked hard to have that citizenship. We deserve a party and we deserve a state that stands behind us. Now, I'm just going to end with this. This is the greatest state in the nation. Unfortunately, we've been wrecked by the California Democrats and we've been sold out by our California Republican Party. This is a two-person race. Truly, this race between myself and Jessica Patterson. I now have 23 county chairman endorsements up and down the state. We have so many people calling all the delegates, it's crazy, but the response is phenomenal. It's overwhelming. And I'm telling you right now, when you elect Travis Allen as your chairman, you're going to get change in California. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. Republicans are going to be on the move again, and we're going to start winning again. And this is something that must happen. If the other person we've talked about in the race, Jessica Patterson, this is simply an extension of the status quo. She has a record essentially of failure. She's got a record of pocketing your hard-earned money. And the problem is all of the establishment is lining up behind their establishment candidate because they want to continue the losing status quo. I'm just one Californian, but I'll tell you very simply, I'm sick and tired of losing. I'm tired of a Republican Party that's not up to fighting the swamp, taking on the Democrats, and actually winning. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So my name's Travis Allen.
Thank you so much,
Let's go fight and win, brother. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. You have a good night.
You too. Take care, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. We're just waiting right now on Miss Patterson to join us. She's been sent the email. I'll make sure she is receiving it. And Jessica, hello, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, my name's Kimo Gandol. I'm the co-chair of the California College Republicans, and we're here today to discuss your candidacy for CRP and ultimately to discuss with our constituents why we should endorse you. At this time, you can have your introduction, take however long you want, but you have 30 minutes in total to also answer questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Great.
I wanted to start by introducing myself to everyone. I got my start as a volunteer in high school. I grew up in a city called Hacienda Heights in a suburb of Los Angeles. And I first started volunteering at the local headquarters. A woman by the name of Martha House took me under her wing and really made me feel at home, welcomed, and got me engaged in Republican politics. I have, from there, I became an intern when I was in college for Assemblyman Bob Pacheco's office, and he got me involved in state party politics. I actually first started volunteering at the state party conventions, working the information booth, and I later became in charge of all of the volunteers as a volunteer intern at the state party. And around that time, we had just been beat statewide in 2002. Every single statewide office we got swept in. And it seems like a very, very dark time in our state party's history. And then came along in 2003, the recall. And it wasn't fully embraced to begin with, but then we got to a place where we were able to really gain momentum. And Californians were sick and tired and fed up of everything that was going on in California. And believe it or not, Governor Schwarzenegger and at the time Senator Tom McClintock were able to put together 76% of the vote when it came to the recall. And that wasn't that long ago. And at the time, our state party chairman, Duff Sondheim, really worked hard in conjunction with the governor to raise money into our party. And about 80% of voting Republicans lived in 14 counties. And they put together a county executive director program. And I was fortunate enough to be hired as the county executive director for Ventura County. I've been incredibly grateful to have been able to work in a field where I feel incredibly passionate about Republican causes and Republican candidates. My background is in the field, building up the grassroots. When I was a county executive director, I would put together the walk sheet and put together phone banks and organize volunteers. And my job has grown, obviously, since then, from everything from being a regional political director for Governor Schwarzenegger's reelect, where I managed 25 counties, 16 offices, 22 staff members, to running statewide operations on gubernatorial races and presidential races as well. Over the last few years, I have found a new passion in candidate development, where we go out and we recruit and train candidates to be candidates for assembly and Senate races. And it has been another incredibly rewarding experience, finding candidates, giving them all of the tools that they need to be successful, has been one of the things that I've enjoyed very much over the years. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my vision for our party. I think we're certainly at a turning point, and we really need to focus on taking the fight to Democrats. We have gotten to a place where people are retreating into two silos, and there's this constant circular firing squad within our party. And the truth of the matter is that every single day they are doing silly things in Sacramento. The Democrats have a super duper majority in both of the houses, and they've held the governor's seat for the better part of a decade. And it starts with a disposable cup ban in Berkeley, and all of a sudden Sacramento has their next great idea. Whether it's plastic bag bans in Huntington Beach or plastic straws in Santa Monica, they start there, and Sacramento manages to find a way to hurt Californians in their pocketbooks. And we need to take the fight to Democrats. We need to stop talking about what is and isn't a good Republican, and we need to start talking every single day about what the Democrats are doing. We are 45th in the nation when it comes to education, but we're also the poverty capital for the US. And it saddens me that Californians don't feel that there's a viable alternative to what the Democrats are serving up here. And it is going to be my job every single day to empower our grassroots and to have a very super localized message. The Democrats want to talk about President Trump and the 3 a.m. tweet and the mainstream media because they don't want to talk about their record. We need to go and engage in communities that have been neglected over the years, and we need to take the fight to Democrats. We need to use a bigger digital presence. As I've been traveling around the state and connecting with grassroots leaders all over the state, one of the biggest concerns is a lack of communication between the state party and the county parties. And back when I was a county executive director, we used to have to fold the envelope or fold the papers and put them in the envelope and stamp the envelopes and sort them by postal code so we could get the good postal rates. And now we have so much available to us right at our fingertips that we can be utilizing digitally. We should be hitting each one of these members in these areas and talking about the silly thing that they voted voted for in Sacramento today. And making sure that our local parties have talking points, the same talking points that we have going on at the state party. And it is going to be my full focus to make sure that our grassroots has everything from the data and the digital technology that they need. We need to do a better job at voter registration, and voter registration is going to look very different than it has in the past. We live in a state where we have motor voter, same-day registration. And to be quite frank, if you want to be registered to vote in California, you already are. So what we need to do as a party is make sure that we are marketing. And it's not the new voters that we're necessarily going to be getting, but we need to convince people as to why they are Republicans and get them over. So it's going to be moving people that are DTS or soft Dems over to the Republican Party because we have a message that resonates with them, a message that says we're better than what the Democrats are serving up in Sacramento. So it's going to be my full focus to do that, to make sure our grassroots is empowered, to make sure that we have the funds that are necessary to do all of these things. I believe that it will really take three things to make sure that we are successful in the party over the next 2, 4, 6, and 10 years. And one is the grassroots. I've already been endorsed by 15 county chairs from all around the state. Next is working with our elected officials. I'm the only person in this race. I've been endorsed by 16 of the 19 assembly members. I have 7 of the 10 senators and 6 of the 7 congressional members who have all endorsed me. I have 15 county central committees, as I mentioned, and then, of course, with the state board, I also have 8 of the state board members that have endorsed me as well. And finally, it's going to take the donor community. I'm the only person in this race that has some of the largest donors in the state that are supporting me and have committed to supporting the party at the same level or bigger if I'm the next state party chair. We're at a turning point. It's going to take all of us working together in order to be successful. And I believe that I'm the only candidate in this race that can bring us all together. And with that, I'm happy to take some questions.
All right, so our first question comes from John Rice Cameron. He's our activism coordinator, and he's the chair of the Stanford College Republicans. He asks, as CRP chair, do you promise to fight for pro-life policies and oppose any and all attempts by California Democrats to expand abortion across the state, including at universities?
Absolutely. I'm unapologetically pro-life. What most people know about me is, well, first of all, I'm a cradle Catholic. So I was born and raised in the Catholic Church. And being pro-life was certainly a value that we had, but I don't think I fully understood it until I became a mom myself. And most people know I have 2 beautiful little girls. What most people don't know is that I've actually had 4 babies in my womb. And I'm not someone who's easily offended, but when someone tells me that my baby wasn't a baby or that my loss was less because I didn't carry my child to term, that's offensive to me. And being pro-life and being a woman is a message that I can carry that other people can't. And I plan to continue that fight. What we saw happen in New York, and then the comments from the Virginia governor just were absolutely appalling and disgusting. And I know what it's like to have a baby in my womb that doesn't go to term. And no one else in this race can talk about that and have that same experience and share it with people and share the message of being a pro-life Republican.
Our next question comes from Ariana Rowland. She's the chairman of the California College Republicans. How do you plan to resolve all the infighting faced in the Republican Party?
Yeah, so number one, I think you need to lead by example. I'm the only person in this race that isn't attacking other Republicans. I believe that we agree on so much more than we disagree on. And anyone that identifies as a Republican, I want to welcome them into our party. I would much rather have Catherine Baker serving in the state assembly, voting with Republicans 89% of the time, than Bauer Kahn, who's there now, will vote with Republicans 0% of the time. We need to stop the who is a good Republican and who is a bad Republican. We need to embrace everyone, and we need to stop the circular firing squad. It's just a waste of time, and it's ineffective, and it does not a darn thing to make sure that Republicans get elected. It doesn't. We need to take the fight to Democrats. I know who the enemy is, and the enemy is not any of our people that have an R behind their name.
Speaking of the circular fire squad, going off the prior question, there's currently a bylaw amendment being presented on the floor that would decharter the California College Republicans as a volunteer organization, effectively disassociating us directly from the party. What is your position on this amendment, and do you plan to speak against it?
So it usually goes through Rules Committee, and I'm no longer on the Rules Committee because I'm running for chair. I resigned. But just very generally speaking, I am about addition, not subtraction. Dechartering an organization to me makes close to zero sense. Even organizations that I don't necessarily agree with, or I have a 100% record with, I feel that anytime we have an opportunity to bring more people to the table, we should take that opportunity. So I would be against this. I don't know that there's any organization that I would be in favor of dechartering, as long as they are fulfilling their requirements that are set forth by the CRP bylaws. It makes no sense to me to decharter any organization.
Absolutely. So this next question comes from Matt Renau. He's the Bay Area Vice Chair and President of the Berkeley College Republicans. He says, given that voter turnout amongst young adults was at a high in the 2018 election, with most of them voting for Democrats, how do you plan on getting the GOP to appeal to young adults, especially considering 2020 is around the corner?
Right. So I'm the only person in this race under 40. Some calendars put me on the millennial time frame. And I believe that, we need to get into communities and continue to have those conversations. And there's no better way to do it than people that look and sound like those communities. And I'm happy to be a young person that has, thrived in Republican politics. And I want to bring that message to all of, not just colleges, but even at the high school level. We need to be engaging more. We need to be bringing more people to the table. And absolutely, we should have college Republicans on every single campus. And I don't see that the college Republicans would have any better partner than me as the state party chair.
So this next question is a response. Well, it's both from our constituents and it's what your opponent brought up in his prior interview. He's basically, they've said, many of us have heard accusations that you're just part of this good old boys club, or what Trump calls the swamp, or your opponent said the establishment. How do you respond to these claims that you'll just be a repeat of the prior administration?
So first of all, I'm my own person. This is the first time I've ever been accused of being a part of the good old boys club. So that's exciting. But to be quite frank, we need to be working with everybody. We need to have relationships with the grassroots community. We need to have relationships with our donors. We need to have relationships with our elected officials. I'm about addition, not subtraction. I'm not going to walk away from any of my relationships, but I want everyone to know I'm my own person, and I'm in this race because I love our party too much. I love our party to see it too much to see it go down the path that it's going down. And that's why I'm in this race. I'm in this race because I want to make sure that our party is successful. We're at a turning point. We have a decision to make. I'm the only person that's out there trying to unite our party. Excellent.
So our next question is coming from Matthew Vitelli from the UCR College Republicans, and a member of the Judicial Board. How do you plan to do voter outreach to register more Republicans, considering the image problem the GOP has? How do we communicate our values when people seem to be predispositioned to dislike us, especially on college campuses?
Yeah, I think that an important part of that is the look and feel of Republicans, right? There is certainly a stigma out there of what our party is. And our party needs new messages and new messengers. And it's going to look very, very different. I would be the first woman that was the chair. I'd be the first Latina that was the chair. And I think that's important. But more than just the top-down approach, we need the bottom-up approach too. And I talked about it a little bit in my introduction, but we need to make sure that the messengers are out there. For several years now, I have been doing training for candidates. We need to be training our volunteers and our people on the front line and making sure that they are prepared to communicate with press and when they're out there talking to people in different communities and engaging more people and growing our party. We need to make sure that people are ready to do that. And I think I'm the only candidate that has been out there actively training people around the state to bring the Republican message out there. And under my leadership, it's only going to expand at the state party level. And that's going to make a huge difference because we know that our party's diverse, but we just need to have them out there in the front.
Absolutely. So our next question comes from the COS College Republicans. They say, knowing that the GOP is the third largest party in the state, how does the party appeal to both declining to state voters and Democrats that are needed to win statewide elections while staying faithful to our core Republican ideology?
That's an absolutely fantastic question. And it's an absolute truth that we have here in California. It's a reality. And the fact of the matter is we need to super localize these elections. We need to be talking about every single day. And it's going to be different. What happens in Crescent City isn't necessarily going to be, the same as what happens in Calabasas. So we need to localize our message. So there's going to be a statewide message that's probably different from the national message. As I mentioned before, the Democrats and mainstream media, they want to talk about President Trump and whatever the 3 a.m. tweet was. We need to focus on the silly things that Democrats are doing up in Sacramento every single day. The ways that they are hurting our pocketbooks, the way that they're killing education, and all of their policies are only leading to increased poverty. We need to talk about the affordability problem that under Democrat rule has gotten worse and worse and worse. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to take those fights and we're going to super localize and we're going to stay on message. One of the things that the Democrats did really, really well last cycle was they stayed on message. Every time that, we saw people, rushing the border, they didn't move to the immigration conversation. They stayed on their message about healthcare. And they were really, really disciplined. And that's what we need to do as California Republicans. We need to be disciplined in our message to make sure that people are hearing us and they hear the things that are going to affect their day-to-day life every single day.
Absolutely. Our next question comes from Dylan Martin, our communications director. What role do you foresee the party taking in social media and advertising online? Do you plan to have any difference from the status quo?
Oh, yeah, we need to step it up. Absolutely. First of all, I think we need to take the fight to Democrats more. I feel that sometimes they get a pass, and I don't understand why that is. So we're going to be bringing the fight to Democrats. I'm not afraid to take on Democrats. You'll never hear me talk about other Republicans. As I said before, I think it's ineffective. I think it's a waste of time. But taking the fight to Democrats is really important. And a very inexpensive way to do it is on the social media side of things. But we are going to spend more money doing it because we just need to be out there more. We need to be more effective. And this is such a great way to reach so many people.
This next question is more of an ideological one. It comes from Panagiotis Prousiakis. He's the treasurer at the College Republicans at UCI. What is your position on the Second Amendment, and how do we protect gun rights in a state progressively restricting our capabilities of doing so?
Yeah, so I am a pro Second Amendment person. Bottom line, it's our Constitution. We are, the guns out there aren't to, they're to protect us from, the government. And so I think that certainly we have an uphill battle here in California. It is, every single legislative session, they're looking for more ways to restrict our freedoms and our liberties. And it's going to be incumbent upon us to be those messengers out there. Additionally, we need to work with outside groups, because the party, as a focus, we're going to have to focus on elections and winning elections and getting back to, but we need to be the support, whether it's with bodies, whether it's with social media, to outside groups to make sure that our rights are protected. And the Second Amendment is, of course, up at the top of that list.
Absolutely. So, speaking of other Republicans, there's a question from Bryce Adams from Sacramento State College Republicans. How do you plan to associate with Trump in 2020, especially considering he's been historically unpopular amongst some of the decline to state voters, especially in the youth? But at the same time, how do we make sure that we stand for our values?
Absolutely. So, the job of the state party chairman is to take a delegation to the national convention that will, be supportive of the president. To give you some of my background, I'm the only person in this race that volunteered, was not paid staff, volunteered for President Trump's national convention in 2016. I'm pretty sure that I was the only one that was invited to and went to his inauguration. Over the last 2 years, I've actually been a volunteer with the White House Office of Political Affairs, where I've helped facilitate all of the trips for the president, the vice president, the cabinet secretaries, and the families here in California. So I've worked hand in hand with the White House Office of Political Affairs on those visits. And then just last month, my husband and I were invited by the president and the first lady to the White House Christmas party, and we attended that as well. So I support our president. That being said, we didn't lose seats in Orange County because our congressional members weren't close enough or didn't vote well enough with President Trump, right? So as I mentioned before, we're going to super localize these messages. We're going to be talking about the things in California that are affecting everyday Californians. And you're never going to hear me speak poorly about our president. He is just like every other Republican. I just don't do it. And we need to focus on coming together because there's too few of us. One of your colleagues earlier mentioned we're the third largest party of the state. If we continue down this road where we're trying to push Republicans out in one direction or the other, we'll end up being the fourth. And we really need to focus on uniting, talking about issues that matter, being really, really disciplined, and getting that message out to Californians all over the state.
Absolutely. So our next question, let me just try to get one from somebody who hasn't asked yet. All right, so we'll just ask another question coming from our chairwoman, and this is on really behalf of the whole board because this policy seems to be coming up a lot, and your opponent, Travis Allen, seemed to talk about it a lot. How do you plan to increase voter outreach? Do you have a plan to register more Republicans, and how do you plan to do this considering the image problem the GOP has?
Right. So there's several different things that we need to do. One is empower our grassroots. The paid efforts over the last several cycles have really pushed down our grassroots. We need to invigorate and energize our grassroots, get people out there walking, talking, engaging in communities. And I'm not talking about 6 weeks before the election. I'm talking about right now. Our grassroots and our volunteer organizations are being beat by the Democrats. And the number one reason is because they're showing up. We need to show up. We need to get back into communities that we've neglected over the last few years. So that's number one. Number two, we need to provide the tools and the resources that are needed at the grassroots level to make sure that our grassroots can be successful and have the opportunity to get out there and engage in these different communities. It's incredibly important that they have the resources, the best data, the best tools, so that we can engage more people. And I think I talked about voter registration a little bit earlier. I think that we definitely need to re-engage our volunteer organizations on the voter registration side. But also, voter registration looks very different than it did 10 years ago. With Motor Voter, same-day registration, if you want to be registered to vote in California, you likely are. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't still try to go out there and get new registrants, but it also means that we're going to have to super localize these messages. We're going to have to talk about our core principles, ideals, and values, and the silly things that Democrats are doing to help convince people who are either softies or independents or decline to states that you're really a Republican. These are the things that you stand for. These are the things that you believe in, and you're really a Republican. So it's going to be a different type of voter registration that we see, more of moving people over and marketing to them so that they understand okay, wait, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a declined state. I am a Republican. This is what I believe in. And then, all of this is going to take a huge amount of funding. And we really need to make sure that our donors are engaged in this. And I'm the only person in this race that has this full support of the donor community behind me.
Absolutely. Since you only have 2 minutes left as a closer, what our board really wants to know just when making our endorsement decision is how do you differentiate from the other candidates, your opposition in this election? What makes you different and important?
So I think that, I'm the only person with what I believe the three things that will make us successful over the next 2, 4, 6, 10 years. And that is engaging everybody to come together. I've got the grassroots on my side, as I mentioned, with 15 county chairs that have supported my race. I have our elected officials on board. 16 of the 19 assembly members have endorsed me. 7 out of the 10 senators have endorsed me. 6 out of the 7 congressional members have endorsed me. And then finally, the donor community. We are too small for us to have different segments within our organization. All of these people have put their full confidence in me leading the party over the next 2 years. And I believe that if we all work together, we can have some really great changes. We're at a turning point, and if we are moving forward as one solid, cohesive unit where everybody is working towards the same goal, which is getting back to winning, I feel like we can be incredibly successful. And I think that differentiates me from both of my opponents.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Miss Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. We're just waiting right now on our next candidate coming up, our final one, Steve Frank. He should be logging on quite soon. Allow me to send him another link just in case. And I apologize for my allergies, of course. It seems I had these wonderful gluten-free cookies earlier without knowing that, of course, I'm allergic to 1,000,002 things. So, apparently chocolate can have wheat supplements in it. So. And of course, if anybody has additional questions, please feel free to DM me because I want to ask the hard-hitting questions. Some of the questions, they've been good and they've been helping us make a decision. But if you have a specific hard-hitting question, feel free to ask one. I never received any from anybody, so we're just asking what we have there, best representing you, our constituents. And it seems like we're getting a few more questions in now. That's good while we're waiting for Steve. I'm going to mute my mic because some of you are angry about hearing me, fortunately, having to All right, we're going to be having the last candidate coming on. I'll be right back. Let me call him, make sure he's able to get on. Yeah.
Okay, well, I see and there you are on the phone.
I'm going to be hanging up now.
And you can hear me?
Yes, sir. We can all hear you. Welcome, Steve Frank, to the California College Republicans. interview for you. What we're going to be doing, of course, you'll be able to make an introduction statement. We're going to ask you a few questions, and this will be determining our endorsement for the CRP candidates. So, Mr. Frank, you'll have the floor. I also want to remind everybody, thank you so much for sticking with us. There were some technical problems. My fault for being not specific. So thank you so much for joining us, Frank, especially at this late hour. So you have the floor now. And this will be determining our endorsement for the CRP candidate. So
There's
you'll have
a delay of a few seconds.
Thank you so much for sticking with us. There was a technical problem. My fault for being not specific. So thank you so much for joining us, Frank, especially at this late hour. So you have the floor now.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity of speaking to the college Republicans. Started my life in politics, in youth politics. I worked on the 1966 Youth for Reagan as a regional chair. In 1968, I was state chair Youth for Nixon, and Youth for Reagan in 66, Nixon in 68. And so I have a background in starting politics. And in 1962, I was on the Youth Speakers Bureau for Nixon for governor. So I understand the need for youth activities as a foundation of the Republican Party. One of the problems that the Republican Party has is that we've done nothing in the last several years for voter registration. In fact, we have lost a million Republicans to the decline to state. And at the same time, our state party has done nothing to register voters. How do you get people to vote for your candidates if you don't have them registered as Republicans to begin with? Second, in the 2018 election, there were 41 legislative seats without a Republican on the ballot versus 153 seats. So 25% of the seats didn't even have a Republican on the ballot. Third, we didn't have a communication policy for the Republican Party to get Republicans to vote Republican in the 2018 election. We did not have a unified message with the Assembly caucus, Senate caucus, or the House delegation, and that's important. So we didn't have voter registration. We didn't have harvesting of absentee ballots. We didn't have candidates on the ballot, and we didn't have communication. So it's no wonder we had the debacle that we had in November, on November 6th. My background is running campaigns and being involved in the state party since 1960, and in the state party since 1962. And so my background is involved in policy, communications, the state party, and of course I've served four terms, 8 years, Gesundheit. I've served 8 years as a parliamentarian of the state party, as well as being able to serve as an elected board member of the state party. I understand the process of the party, what needs to be done, and because of that, I developed a back to basics plan, the only candidate in the race that has written about not only the problems of the party, but how to solve them. And that's important for you as college Republicans to see where we're going from here. One of the things my Back to Basics plan talks about is the need for more internships for Republicans who are in college and young Republicans. So I have a 3-point plan to get young people involved in the state Republican Party. One, we need to have a mentoring program where we have the ability to train young people in college, in high school, in the art of politics, how to get involved and how to be productive. Second, we need internships, not only at the state level in assembly campaigns, state Senate campaigns, congressional campaigns, but also the offices of our Republican office holders, as well as on a local level for city council, school board, boards of supervisors, and mayors by having interns so they could learn the art of politics, learn the art of policy, and learn how to persuade a community into support of the person they're working for. And the third part is to put a seat at the table of decision making of the state Republican Party, not merely as the associate representative, which has one seat, but also have people who represent a variety of opinions from the youth community, so that we can begin to outreach to colleges, to the millennial community, for registered Republicans, and then to get them to work for the Republican Party. That is basically what I want to do as your chair. I'm the only candidate that's worked inside the party that has an understanding of it, and for the last 6 years has been fighting on the floor of the convention and with the board of directors and leaders of our party in the caucuses that we had to return to the basics of politics, which is voter registration, communication, and get out the vote, and expanding our Republican base. Without that, we're going to have more November 6th. My plan is to be a positive disruptor of the state party, because we need to have that change, and we can't be gentle about it. We need to go forward with it in a very progressive and aggressive way. Otherwise, we'll never make a difference for 2020 and beyond. One last thing, and then I'll open up for questions. I like to give out my phone number to every delegate of the state party, every county central committee, every leader in the volunteer organizations. My personal cell phone is 805-795-1271. I believe every Republican leader should be able to talk directly to the chairman of the party and not to have a friend of a friend of a friend to figure out how do we get the phone number to talk to the chair. You should be able to talk to the chair when you want to directly without having to go through a whole lot of steps. I appreciate the opportunity of speaking tonight to the college Republicans, and I apologize to you, Kimo, and the rest on this, that I got caught up in the mountains of Calaveras and couldn't get down to a hotel to get internet connection.
No problem. It's always, I'm really glad you could be here with us, and I appreciate that you're going out in the community and trying to be active. So our first question tonight comes from John Rice Cameron. He's our activism coordinator and the chair of the Stanford College Republicans. As CRP chair, do you promise to fight for pro-life policies and oppose any and all attempts by the California Democrats to expand abortion access in the state?
I didn't catch the last part of that question.
Will you oppose attempts by the California Democrats to expand abortion access across the state, including at institutions like universities?
We're having feedback, so
Sorry, folks. It looks like we had another technical problem. I'm going to be calling him right now and figuring that out immediately. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry, we're back. We had a couple technical communication problems. Thank you so much for being with us again, Mr. Frank. All right, so I'll just repeat the question. It's from John Rice Cameron. He's the activism coordinator and the chair of the Stanford College Republicans. As CRP chair, do you promise to fight for pro-life policies and oppose attempts by the California Democrats to expand abortion?
Okay. I think the platform of the California Republican Party is very clear, and we should keep that platform, that we don't expand abortion, that we should limit the ability to have abortions. There's a movement nationwide to create abortion after birth, as they're doing in both New York and Virginia. The attempt is being made, and I end up for life position as a state party, as a national party, and an important part of the foundation of the Republican Party. And the use of the universities to promote abortions is abhorrent to all of us and needs to be stopped. If wishes to have abortions and it's legal under the law, they should be able to do that. The universities that pay for by the taxpayers should not be paying for it.
Perfect. So our next question, sorry, we have a tiny feedback. Okay, perfect. All right, this question is from Ariana Rollins. She's the state chairwoman of the California College Republicans. How do you plan to resolve infighting faced by the Republican Party?
I think the most important way of doing that is to give people something very productive to do. And my plan that I've already published is for the first 30 days of my administration as chair of the state Republican Party is to create 14 new committees that have 30 days in which to report, committees dealing with legal issues, education, coalitions, election law, and other issues, total of 14, have them report in 30 days a plan that would allow for the actual strategy, the cost, the time schedule to get those items. And I think putting people to work productively, happy hands that are productive hands are not hands that are fighting. And if we give people, everybody in the party, something productive to do, I think we'll have a lot less fighting. And maybe we'll be able to begin to teach people that productive activities is better than backbiting and smearing of people and just fighting for the sake of fighting.
So going off the prior question, there is a bylaw amendment being presented to CRP that would effectively decharter the California College Republicans as a volunteer organization. This, in effect, would disassociate us from the party. What is your stance on this, and do you plan to speak against this amendment?
I didn't hear the end of the question. What was my stance on?
So, sorry, for your because the background seems to be repeating, do you have another tab open?
I think I understood the question. There's still feedback.
With the feedback, do you have another tab open, like the YouTube tab? I think I accidentally sent you the YouTube tab earlier, and that might be causing the feedback.
Do you have another tab open? Let me see. Okay, I have another tab open, like the YouTube tab? No, the only tab I have open is my Gmail storage and my link to Gmail. This is the only tab with a YouTube on it.
Okay, that's fine. The program must just be having be finicky. Anyway, back to the question. So there is a bylaw amendment being proposed that would strike. So I'm also a registered parliamentarian, just like you, so I appreciate the parliamentary formalities. What it does is it strikes the California College Republicans from the bylaws, effectively dechartering us. Now, obviously, dechartering is not a parliamentary term. It doesn't appear once in Robert's rules, but it does mean we would be no longer associated with the party as a formality, which really would hurt us because it basically says they don't want us to be part of the party. Do you plan to speak against this amendment and oppose efforts to strike the college Republicans from CRP? But it does mean we would be no longer associated with the party as a formality, which really would hurt us.
I'm just hearing the rest of your question.
They don't want us to be part of the party. No problem. Plan to speak against this amendment and oppose efforts to strike the college Republicans from CRP.
I was horrified when I saw that amendment, when I heard about it. There's no reason and wrong to put any Republican group that qualifies under the bylaws to be a chartered organization, just as an organization. We need to have more organizations that represent more interest groups, in this case, college students, rather than cutting them out. Years ago, there had been a fight between the two there were actually two clubs that were chartered by the state party. And I was part of the negotiating team that put the two of them back together, so there was one young Republican group in the state rather than two, and all they did was fight one another instead of fighting the Democrats. We need the college Republicans on every campus rather than taking away their charter. It makes no sense whatsoever, except as for some people, they don't do anything productive. They like to destroy rather than build, and that's what's behind that bylaw amendment.
Excellent. So this next question comes from Matt Renau. He's the Bay Area Vice Chair and President of the Berkeley College Republicans. Given that voter turnout amongst young adults was at an all-time high in 2018, with most of them voting Democrat, how do you plan on getting the GOP to appeal to young adults, especially considering 2020 is around the corner?
One of the great problems, and you're right, closing of the filing for the March 3rd, 2020 election is only in 10 months. That's the closing. So we have 10 months to find candidates. And the way we get young people to vote is to show them the differences between opportunities of the Republican Party building the economy of this country versus the Democrat Party that doesn't believe that young people have the ability to choose their own doctor, their own hospital, their own education, that on college campuses, their free speech is taken away. Certainly at your college, Chemo, UC Irvine, we have seen dramatic fascism on behalf of the administration and students not to allow free speech on your campus, but that's on campuses throughout the state of California as well. And we need to open up the campuses for free speech. And when the students see that we are the party that believes in free speech, open discussion, a free economy, a quality education through charter schools. Interestingly enough, the Pew Institute did a study that the #1 issue for millennials happens to be education for their children. They are concerned about the quality of government education for their kids. And it's about time that we as Republicans speak up for quality education for all kids, people of color. As you may know, LA Unified just sent a letter to the state, to the governor and the State Board of Education, wanting to close down more charter schools in the state. Charter schools give children of color, children of poverty and the poor an opportunity to have a quality education that only the rich can afford by going to private schools. And we need to show the young whether they are able to pay the high prices of government education or those who can, that you can get quality education through schools of choice. And competition makes all schools better.
Excellent. So our next question is coming from the COS College Republicans. Knowing that the GOP is the third largest party in the state, how does the party appeal to both decline to state voters and Democrats that are needed to win statewide elections while staying faithful to the core Republican ideology?
I think the best way for us to get Democrats, and especially decline to state, is to show Democrats are doing to the people of this state. I bet somewhere in your house there, Chemo, you have a bottle of water. The governor wants to tax it. I know, I just saw your cell phone. The governor wants to double the tax on your cell phone. And people need to understand that the state of California, under Newsom and the governor and the Democrats, happen to be a party of taxation and takeover of your personal choices. And if we show, especially decline to staters, who I believe 2/3 of which are former Republicans who got upset with the Republican Party for one reason or another, that we are able to show them that the Republican Party stands for what they need and what they want, rather than the Democrats, we can get decline to state back. If we show the moderate Democrats and even the liberal Democrats how the progressive Democrats are trying to close down their rights in the state of California, their political rights in the state of California, we can get some of their votes as well. But the first thing we have to do is be aggressive in our communication with the general public on these issues. I do 8 to 9 radio shows a week around the state. I do more radio shows in a month than the entire board of directors of the California Republican Party do in 1 year. And that's just wrong. They should be doing their share, and they don't. And we need to communicate our values to the general public. It's great speaking to the young Republicans. It's great speaking to the college Republicans and the Women's Federated and the CRA. That's good. But we really need to be speaking to college groups on college campuses. We need to be speaking to the Chamber of Commerce. We need to be going to the community at large rather than just preaching to the choir.
Excellent. Our next question is about, so we always incorporate a question from your opponents. Both your opponents seem to write you off and spend most of the time attacking each other. How do you respond to concerns by constituents that endorsing you, it's improbable for you to win? So how do you respond to that? Do you think you can pull off a victory with the delegates here, especially with Ms. Patterson knowing the proxy system and Mr. Allen having claim to his grassroots movement? How do you respond to concerns by constituents?
I've been involved in lots of campaigns over the years, hundreds, and I've always heard opponents say their opponents can't win. And that's just natural political talk. In reality, we have a secret ballot for chair, and there's been a lot of bullying and threatening by major establishment people around the state to delegates. It doesn't matter because I know where the votes are. And in fact, the people are going to reject the bullying and the threatening of the delegates, as they did last night in Fresno. When that was attempted, the delegates that were present at a fundraiser in Fresno were very upset with the people who were threatening them if they didn't vote right. Look, I'm not going to talk about Jessica. I'm not going to talk about Travis. We all have our own theories about the campaign. Quite frankly, I think I'm going to win. Maybe not on the first ballot, but certainly on the second ballot. I know where the votes are, and I know a lot of people that have publicly pledged to my opponents are actually working for me and I have endorsements from them. And so, yeah, it's great to talk about that. I'd rather talk about what we're going to do as chair rather than take on my opponents.
Of course. The next question is an ideological question, and it comes from Panagiotis Frusiakis from UCI. What is your position on the Second Amendment, and how do we, as the party, push a narrative to protect our gun rights in this state?
Well, I think, first of all, my position has been very clear over the years. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. You don't have to take my word for it. Many of you read my California Political News and Views, which comes out 6 times a week, 10 articles a day. I've been doing it for 22 years. And for 22 years, I've been writing about it on radio shows. I've been talking about protecting Second Amendment rights. And I think that as the Republican Party, we need to be able to talk about it. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but California has the largest number of people that have guns in the whole country. Even Dianne Feinstein, who doesn't want you to have a gun, she carries a gun in her purse. And I'm glad she does. She has a right to carry a gun, as we all do. And so what we have to do is show the Democrat, if we want to really talk about gun rights, let's talk about all the Democrats that carry guns and ask them why aren't they giving them up while they're telling us to give them up. And, you know, if it wasn't for double standards, the Democrats would have no standards.
Yes. Our next question comes from Dylan Martin, our communications director. What role do you foresee the party taking in social media, new technology, and advertising?
The reality of technology today is that email, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, social media in general is the way people communicate. My wife of 46 years is addicted to Facebook. I can't get her away from it at night. People are reading this stuff and they learn more about it than watching CBS News or even Fox News. And we need to become more adroit at using that. State Senator Mike Morrell has created a data analysis of how many people read his tweets and his Facebook accounts, and it shows him which ones are read and which ones, while nice, nobody cares about. And he keeps improving the quality of his tweets and his Facebook postings by doing that. The state party needs to be doing that as well. We need to be going through all of the social media, promoting it, not just to other Republicans, but to special interests. We should go on the social media pages of the insurance companies and insurance industry to show how the Republican Party is trying to protect their rights and the Democrats are trying to close them down. The same for social issues, the same for Second Amendment issues. There are a lot of websites and social media that we could use if we wanted to. But this is another part of the laissez-faire attitude of the state party currently. They don't want to register voters, they don't want candidates on the ballot, and they don't use social media.
So, the final question to you tonight, this is on behalf of the state board, is how do you differentiate yourself from the rest of the candidates? Why should we, in essence, cast our endorsement for you?
Why? Because I have an understanding of youth politics that no one else has, having worked in it for so many years. But second of all, the office of chair of the state party is an operational position. The purpose of the chair is to make sure we have voter registration programs, candidates running for office, a message, communication, get out the vote, and all the other trappings, permanent coalitions. And I'm the only candidate that has done this sort of thing, has worked the state party. As I said earlier, I served for 8 years as parliamentarian of the state party, been elected to the board. I've served on every major committee of the state party and some of the minor committees of the state party. I've served on special committees. I understand the party backwards and forwards, which none of the other candidates have because they haven't been involved in that. They're new to the game of the state party. And so what we need to go forward, if we're going to win, if the college Republicans are going to expand, you need to have somebody in charge that is operational as well as policy and communication.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Steve. I'm sure you had a long drive down from the mountains, but thank you for joining us. That was a great session, and good night.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. That was our 3 candidates. Now, the process is within the next probably 15 minutes, I'm going to be posting a poll onto the California College GOP page. That poll will be up for the next 3 days, and that will then be sent to the executive board for deliberation on our endorsement for CRP candidate. Of course, the board will also be taking into consideration other candidates for lower positions, but this will primarily deal with what you heard tonight. You, the constituent, will get to make the choice of who will be your next CRP chair. Well, at least the CCR endorsement of them. We'll make sure to be loud and represent you. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and I hope you have a great night. God bless.